Is it a G.I. Joe toy? Is it a Transformer? Is it a G.I. Joe toy? Is it a Transformer? It's both! Welcome to Retrobot, the YouTube channel where we feed a friendly space robot a diet of pure nostalgia. Today we are taking a look at the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover Bumblebee A.W.E striker vehicle and set, and this is the package. And here I will hold it so that you can see it. And it's right here. You can see that one side is all Transformery, the other side is all G.I. Joe-y, and then they continue that on the top with pictures of the Transformer-ness over on this side and G.I. Joe logo here, and then we've got G.I. Joe stuff here and Transformer stuff here, and then not much of anything here and gobbledygook. And then we have product shots, which once again merge the whole G.I. Joe and Transformer thing together. This is, the packaging for this is really nice. It slides apart like this, and then you have a Hasbro shipper box that has stuff printed on it, and then the figures are inside. Also included in this set, right here, let me just set that right there, and show you this. This is Lonzo. In my peeks and pokes, I said Londo. It's not Londo, it's Lonzo. I mean, it says so right here. So look at that, Lonzo. I don't know why I said Londo. Anyway, so there we have Lonzo Stalker Wilkinson in package, and you get the bio card and everything, which is very, very cool. And then you get to see him in his preferred vehicle, the Bumblebee A.W.E striker. And while I respect that we've got this figure in this blister package, a couple criticisms. For one thing, it's sealed in here. I have to tear the package to get this figure out. The other thing is that it's a reissue of the O-Ring figure, which honestly, those are not the best representations of those toys. I know that it is original Real American Hero accurate, but they're you know, they're okay. There are better versions of those figures. And here's where it becomes a real problem. The foot pegs that they have little stands, and there are holes in the bottoms of the characters' feet. Well, the holes in the bottoms of these feet are bigger than the holes in the bottoms of the more modern figures. So when I have a newer version of Stalker in this vehicle, and then I want him to stand on the little platform that they have on the back, which right here in vehicle mode is actually right here, this figure cannot put his foot on that peg. And that's where it's like, you know, like, gosh, you know, like, I understand that this is a nostalgia line. The whole idea here is that Transformers were never in the right scale with G.I. Joe, even though they commonly had a shared universe. The comics crossed over all the times. The toy lines crossed over. There were even crossovers in the cartoon. And so you know they're hearkening back to those days, but you know, a more modern version of this figure wouldn't kill it. I mean, that's all I'm saying. That would just solve some problems, and also not sealing the one that's packed in a package that you have to destroy. The rest of this comes apart, twist ties, things like that, no problem. But the figure is sealed. So that's my rant about the packaging. But let's take a look at the actual vehicle here, and you can see my more modern stalker figure inside his A.W.E. striker vehicle that is actually Bumblebee in disguise. And you look at this thing, and it is a loving tribute to the original. It has virtually all the features of the original toy. There are some subtle things that will tip you off that it is not the original, that it is a Transformer. For one thing, you can see there's a very thin division line right here on the hood that shows you, hey, you know, these are two separate panels. It's not super obvious, but it is there. More obvious is that you can see a little bit of yellow Bumblebee arm on the underside, and of course the most obvious is that in the back you have this yellow here that makes up Bumblebee's chest. It's a hard thing because Bumblebee is known as the yellow guy. He's always been yellow, but they want this to look like the original vehicle, and the original vehicle is green, so they kind of made it a yellow green, which I think works. I did get the reissue version of the A.W.E. striker, so let's just put these side by side so that you can see these and see just how close these two vehicles are to each other. I'm gonna adjust the camera just a little bit here because I want you to be able to see that the geometry is nearly identical. It's not 100% identical, but it is nearly identical. One thing that you will notice is that on the G.I. Joe version, the tires are closed on both sides. The Transformers version, the tire is hollow inside. Obviously, this doesn't have a panel division here. The other thing is that this version features steering wheels. Like, look at that. You know, you can put them in a position and roll them, and it'll spin. Now, granted, that's not tied to the steering wheel, but it is a feature that is there. This one does not have that feature. Another difference is that in the original version, we have suspension here. You see how that kind of moves up and down. It's got a little bit of springiness there. Nothing. These wheels are fixed. And honestly, I don't expect these to have those features. I don't look at the Transformers toy and really feel like it has to have shocks built into the wheels, and certainly it would be a pain in the butt to have it steer. But it is noteworthy that with the Megatron Hiss Tank, they pretty much replicated all the play features of the original Hiss Tank toy. Granted, the Hiss Tank didn't have things like suspension and steering wheels, but in every way, the Megatron Hiss Tank did everything that the Hiss Tank did. I guess a subtle difference is that the Megatron Hiss Tank had two separate guns, whereas the original Hiss Tank, those guns were fused together. So if you lifted one, they both went up. But, you know, being able to aim them independently, I call that a feature, not a flaw. So yeah, we do have this other little details. You can see that in the G.I. Joe version, the engine is a different colored plastic. This is a separate piece from the surrounding material, and you have the exhaust that also is part of that separate piece, whereas those details are just molded in and not even painted. You know, it's an interesting choice. It's not a big deal, but it is also noteworthy that, again, in that regard, they did not replicate the original, but the geometry's there, and it doesn't detract a whole lot. It's just noteworthy. So we do have the two antennas. which, just like this, you have the two antennas, you've got the gun. I never had this toy when I was a kid, so I don't know if the original version had a gun that shot or did anything. This version does not, and this version is nearly identical. It also does not. I suspect that blast effects pieces would fit in there, but I haven't tested it, so I don't know. You know, at MGO, this is where you could do like a big old bloosh. So you know, if it blooshes. If it blooshes, I don't know. Anyway, so I do have a more modern version of Stalker in there, and he fits just fine. And you can put his hands on the steering wheel, and he can ride in there. You can get 2 figures in there, and you could even have more figures hanging on. But of course, if you try to use the foot pegs, they better be the O-ring figures, because these pegs will not fit the more modern figures. It's kind of annoying because the more modern figures look nicer and are actually more posable. But yeah, that see, little holes, big pegs, little holes, big pegs, little holes, big pegs. So yeah, that's my frustration with that. I am going to set Stalker aside. Also, it is one last difference. The original Striker did not come with Stalker. It came with Crankcase. Crankcase. You guys remember Crankcase, right? I mean, he was your favorite character. Back in Real American Hero, there were all those missions that we saw Crankcase save Scarlet and Flint and you know, that time that Crankcase beat up Snake Eyes, right? I don't remember for Crankcase. I'm sure he showed up. I mean, it seems like they all showed up at one point or another, but yeah, I can certainly understand why they would pack in Bumblebee with a more well-known character than Crankcase. So that is that is the vehicle mode and the dude, and I will set Stalker aside for now. But this turns into a robot. That's its job, and we want to make it do its job. So let's go ahead and let's turn it into a robot, and not just any robot, it's Bumblebee. So here we go. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fold up the bumper right there, and then I'm going to fold down the little gun, and I'm going to take the steering wheel, and I'm going to fold that and snap that forward as far as it will go. I am going to next disengage the roll cage. The roll cage can be removed. I don't remove it because it's part of the transform, and so, you know, I leave it on there. But you could take it off if you wanted to, because it is a little bit kibbly. So we've got that. Now we're going to unlock the side panels from the fenders and just kind of unseat that, and then we'll do that. You see how those things just tab together here and here, and then we also have the arms on the other side, underside, that are tabbed in with these little slots in the undersides of his arms right there, like that. So now you can pull the body down. And look, there's Bumblebee, there's his head, there's his chest. And unlike the Tank Megatron, you don't need extra pieces to cover up his Bumblebee-ness. So, hey, you know, that's nice. You know, that's an improvement. The arms pull out and away from the body like that. And then we're going to do the legs. The legs is where most of the transformation happens with this toy, not unlike Holiday Optimus Prime. So we're going to fold this around at the knees. You see he's got his knees there. And there's, you know, the whole thing here, Bumblebee is held together just by a thin string of little skinny pieces. Not sure how I feel about that, but it does get better when you turn them back into a robot. So we've got the lower half, the front half of the vehicle that makes up the legs. We can pull the legs apart at this point, and now we're going to transform them. So these side panels are on a hinged piece that's going to go around like that. And then these are on a double jointed linkage, and that can go back like that and against the back of the leg there. And then the seat, I don't like this, but this is what you do. You take the seat and you pop it in there, and then that's the foot. I feel like it wouldn't have taken a lot for there to be like a hinge between the front and back half of the seat so that he could have a flat foot, but no, he has a bucket seat for a foot, and that's the foot. That's how the foot works. So yeah, that's the leg. So let's go ahead and do all that on the other leg, and it's actually not all that. We're going to take this side piece here. I'll show you here. And we're going to fold it down around this way, and then it's going to go back up against the leg, and then that is going to click in. And those are legs. Those are completed legs, and you see he kind of flails around because the joints are a little bit loosey-goosey. Like, he can hold his pose, but you see how, like, that... See, I don't like that either. I don't like that. Now the forward and back motion is a little bit better. The knee is okay, but only just. I really wish that the joints were tighter on this toy because the floppiness really makes it feel cheap. So, all right, now let's work on the upper body. The upper body, I'm going to try and make it so that you can see this. All of this stuff in here collapses together, and you see there is a tab right here on this gray piece, right above my finger, and that is going to end up going into this slot in the middle of the black piece. So this whole thing is going to collapse together with the engine of the vehicle on Bumblebee's back. So here, watch. I'm going to try and get the arm up out of the way so that you can see what's going on. So you see how that just goes together and it kind of accordion folds, and then you got to stick your finger in here and press that in there. I have tried multiple ways to just squish it and get them to lock in, and it doesn't, like, it'll meet up, but it just won't really lock in. So I take my fingers inside the body and I press and get those things to lock together. All right, and I think, nope, I didn't get it. I did not get it. We're working on it. We're gonna get this to lock in there. Just lock in there. You're gonna lock in. There, you almost locked in. You can do it. You can do it. You can. Ah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I pressed against the back here, squished against the front, and then with my fingers, just a little bit of extra pressure on that black piece, pulling it forward towards the chest to kind of lock everything together. And once it's locked in, then it's actually pretty good. So, you know, minus the floppiness of the legs, his chest is all right. And then the arms and shoulders are on these multi-jointed linkage pieces. So it's going to go up, click in, and then down, and then you can bend the elbow. And then again, we're going to go up, click in, go down, and then we'll bend at the elbow. And then we've got these fender pieces, which you can actually disengage and put up like that. I don't really like that. I mean, it's fine. It's no big deal. Honestly, I just kind of tend to leave them pegged into the back here because, you know, it doesn't, I guess that having them up and out of the way gives his arms more clearance to move, but I think that he just looks a little bit more whole if they're in place. Hey, it's your toy. If you get one of these, then, you know, transform it whatever way you want. Take the whole thing off. It's okay. You can do it. So yeah. Last thing, there is a gun on here. Now notice that when I'm pulling this off, I'm grabbing it at this little fork and peg piece. You see how it's got this little piece right here that the gun tilts on, and for me, on mine, this one comes apart all the time. So I'm grabbing it by here when I'm pulling it out in an effort to make it not pull apart. So then you just plug it into the shoulder right there, and I'll have it angle out away from him so that I can take Stalker here, and let's put him into a gun firing pose. I don't understand why there's no handles. Like, and that's consistent with the other one. There's no handles there. So you just kind of stick the thumbs of your little dude. And you know, here, this is, you stick the thumbs of the little dude in those little holes. And it does work. I mean, that's the thing. It does work to put the thumbs of the little dude in the holes, and then he holds himself on there. You know, notice he can't get his foot in the peg, as I mentioned earlier, but he is able to hold himself on there. So it does work, but I want there to just to be handles. Like, it seems like there should have been handles that he could, you know, use his kung fu grip and hold on to handles. There ain't none. They're just little holes. Put his thumbs in there. So yeah, that is Bumblebee. Let's go ahead and put him on the camera, on the better camera, and I'll even use the Lazy Susan because I've got a Lazy Susan, and if she's going to be lazy, then I might as well take advantage of that. I don't know. I've never really understood the term Lazy Susan, but, you know, whatever. All right, so here we go. Here he is. That's his feet. We don't want to just look at his feet. We want to look at Bumblebee in his robot mode, in all of his glory. And oh, he has such glory. So here is the robot mode, and it's actually a pretty decent robot mode in terms of articulation. It's a little bit clumsy with the big knobby tires. You know, I kind of wish that they had done something to move the tires lower on the legs so that they're not up by his elbows. Big tires on his shoulders are fine. I mean, that's cool. You know, that looks cool. And Transformers with big knobby tires on their shoulders, that's like Transformer bread and butter. He doesn't really look much like Bumblebee. He's got a very Bumblebee head, and they've got some yellow accents on him. Other than that, the body does not look Bumblebee at all. And I'm okay with that. Let me just say this. I'm okay with his body not being a traditional Bumblebee body where the chest is the hood of a car and there's windows and stuff. That is fine. It's just interesting to me that with Megatron, they went through many pains to make him look like Gen 1 Megatron top to bottom, except with some big Hiss Tank shoulders and a whole bunch of Hiss Tank kibble on his back. Yeah, Dudley agrees. But with Bumblebee, notice that they've allowed him to have a distinctly different looking body. And I think that that's fine. Honestly, I feel like that's one of the things that makes the idea of a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover interesting, is seeing how the Transformers would be different if they had adopted G.I. Joe and Cobra vehicle forms. So that's, it's not a criticism, it's just an observation, and yeah, take it for what it is. In terms of articulation, you do have a head swivel here. It doesn't nod. He cannot say yes, he can only say no. He's got a lot of shoulder movement, especially since these are double jointed and you can pop them out if you want to. The arm is a little bit limited by all the stuff around it, and of course, since I don't have these up and pivoted out of the way, it's even a little bit worse. But it's still, you can still spin the arm all the way around. The arms go out, they go in. He's got bicep rotation, he's got a 90-degree bend at the elbow, and he's got I believe that he has rotating wrists, but boy, they're tight. Okay, you know what? I don't know that they do rotate. I don't think that they rotate at all. They just, if they do, mine is stuck. They are a separate piece. It's interesting that they don't rotate. But now I could probably pop that out of there and round out the joint and then make it rotate. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm recording a video. He's got waist rotation. So you see he can, oh, and there goes Stalker. Oh well. He's got waist rotation, but of course, with all of the kibble on the back, this roll cage, it kind of catches on stuff. So there are limits just because of all the extra stuff here. He can do the splits. So, not quite a full split, but pretty close. He can also do the Ministry of Silly Walks, which is important. And then he's got thicep rotation, just like that. And he's got a very, very functional knee that is limited only by this piece back here. If I were to move it out to the side like that, then he could do that. And honestly, that doesn't look bad. It's like you could just transform him that way, and it's really no worse than how it was before. So you can do that. He doesn't have any ankle tiltage that I can detect. Due to transformation, you can sort of tip the back of the chair. I don't know, the front of the chair. Yeah, the feet are terrible. These are dumb looking feet. But if you keep them on the ground, then you can ignore them and you can just look at him as a Bumblebee that is in scale with his G.I. Joe partner Stalker, and they can both be there looking badass and cool like that. And that's what this line, I don't know if it counts as a full line. I don't know how many of these they're planning on doing. But that is really what these toys are all about, is giving you the opportunity to have Transformers that interact with your G.I. Joe guys in a more meaningful way. Sure, we all had G.I. Joe toys and Transformers toys when we were a kid, and you could stretch your imagination to have them occupy the same universe, but the scale was just completely off, especially when you get down to the mini cars and really, I feel like this should have been Beachcomber, not Bumblebee. But of course Beachcomber is famously a pacifist and blue, but it looks like Beachcomber. The vehicle mode looks very similar to Beachcomber, but that's not, they're not going to choose Beachcomber. They're going to choose the characters that they know sell. Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, Starscream. We've only gotten Megatron and Bumblebee right now. I don't know if they're doing an Optimus Prime or a Starscream. They've got to do a Starscream Cobra Rattler. They've got to do a Starscream Cobra Rattler. I mean, they just have to. Don't they? I don't know. So, overall, I would say that the build quality on this toy is decent. He doesn't feel quite as hollow as Megatron did. And even with this big roll cage on the back, he doesn't have nearly as much kibble on him. Yeah, this is big and it's cumbersome. It's also easy to remove, and if you remove it, you're not destroying the integrity of the vehicle as a whole. It just doesn't have the roll cage. So I wish that the joints were tighter. The floppiness of the joints really impacts my enjoyment of this figure, and I can just about guarantee that after this review, I will be just putting a little bit of glue into those joints and working them out to make sure that they tighten up. But of course, I do that, and whenever I mention it, I say, if you try that, be very careful, because it is very easy to lock up the joints, and if you fuse a joint with glue, you're breaking it to get it apart. You're gonna break your toy. You will ruin the value, the collectible value of your toy. Fortunately, I never sell any of mine, so I don't worry about that sort of thing. I just take my chances. All right, so yeah, I would say overall, I really like him, and I think that what they've done in recreating these classic G.I. Joe vehicles is a love letter to G.I. Joe. I'm more of a Transformers fan than I ever was a G.I. Joe fan, so to me, I kind of wish that the Transformers side of it was a little stronger, but it's still pretty darn cool. So yeah, that is my review of Transformers G.I. Joe crossover A.W.E. Striker Bumblebee. Boy, there's a lot of words to remember with reviews like this. But he is cool, not perfect. There's some things that I like. There's things that I don't like. But overall, I do like him, and I do think that it's a really great toy. And I'm glad that they're doing this stuff, and I want them to continue. I would still love to see just a Transformers line with, like, done to the normal Transformers generations quality, except with G.I. Joe minifigs that can ride in the vehicles, and done with G.I. Joe and Transformer vehicles. That's what I would want to see. Just, like headmaster-sized versions of G.I. Joe characters. Like, that would be cool. But that shows that I'm more of a Transformers fan than a G.I. Joe fan. G.I. Joe fan doesn't care about that because they can't take the minifigs and use them with their G.I. Joe toys. This, you can use with your G.I. Joe toys. And that's the point. So, I keep trying to close this video. If you have enjoyed this review, then please give it a thumbs up. Consider joining the channel, subscribing to the channel, click the notification bell so that you know when we're doing short circuits videos like this one, and our peeks and pokes reviews, which are very short, where we take a quick peek at a character and we poke at them. Also, you'll be notified when we are doing our live streams, which happen typically every Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern United States time. Be there, join the chat, and we will toast to you and welcome you and say hi. We have a great community that's very welcoming and friendly and fun. It's a lot of fun, so join us for that if anytime. Well, okay, specifically at 8 o'clock Eastern United States time, not I mean, you can watch the recorded version of the video anytime, but if you want to join the live chat, then that's it. Anyway, also, we do have a Patreon, and there are different levels of our Patreon with different rewards as our way of saying thank you. Seriously, thank you to all of our patrons. We really appreciate all the help that we can get. And with that being said, for a very special thank you to our patrons, we have the Chaos Bringer himself, Unicron. Come on up here and thank our patrons.
Thank you, patrons, our ultimate retro heroes. Thank you, Fetch Beer, Robus, Matt White, Starhound, Setsune Wave, Dawn, Hope and Michael D, and Colleen. And now I would like to eat a whole bunch of honey, because this was a video about Bumblebee. Bumblebees make honey. It's a science joke, like biology, life sciences. Hello? Is this thing on? Hello? Humans stink.
Okay, well, I'm sure that he wasn't referring to our human patrons. Just the rest of us? I don't know. Unicron is very temperamental. Anyway, I'm Clay, and this is Bumblebee, and we are both telling you to keep it Retrobot! Yeah, G.I. Joe Bumblebee. Turning into a thing that looks like Beachcomber, but that's okay, because in Rise of the Beast, Mirage turns into Jazz, so, it's all wacky.